Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and if it's your first time here, please do consider subscribing. Making these guides takes a lot of time because I thoroughly learn and test the decks to make sure that I can bring you the best guides possible. And also guys, let me know down in the comments below what guides you're interested in seeing, and maybe, just maybe, I'll get to it in the future. One last thing guys, just a quick reminder that I am on both Twitter and Instagram if you want to find out more about me, my videos, maybe some giveaways, or even just talk to me. Make sure to follow me at BearXBearYGO. As always, timestamps are in the description below. So guys, without further ado, let's get on with the video. Welcome to part 1 of the Unchained guide. In this part of the guide, we're going to be covering the Archetype introduction. Alright guys, welcome to the Archetype introduction. If you're not already familiar with this part of the guide, this is the part of the guide where we go over the monsters, the spells, the traps, basically the entirety of the deck. We go over what they do and how many copies you should be playing of each card. Alright, so let's start off by covering the Unchained Twins. So these are the monsters that you can normal summon in a deck. The first one we're going to be covering is Unchained Twins Aruha. So, you can target one card you control, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except Fiend monsters. Also, destroy the targeted card, and if you do, special summon this card from your hand. If this card in the field is destroyed by card effect, except Unchained Twins Aruha, or by battle, you can special summon one Unchained monster from your hand or deck, except Unchained Twins Aruha. You can only use each effect of Unchained Twins Aruha once per turn. So I do recommend playing 3 copies of this card. It's a great extender and can really help facilitate a lot of plays and give you a lot of options. For our next Unchained Twin, we're going to be covering Unchained Twins Rakia. So with Rakia, it is a quick effect that you can target one card you control, destroy it. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except Fiend monsters. If this card in the field is destroyed by card effect, except by Unchained Twins Rakia, or by battle, you can special summon one Unchained monster from your hand or deck, except Unchained Twins Rakia. You can only use each effect of Unchained Twins Rakia once per turn. I recommend 3 copies of this one as well. This card adds a skill factor to the deck by creating some outplay potential and helping facilitate plays and damage for you to win the game. We'll go over some more of this in the tips and tricks part of the video. And for the final Unchained Twins, we have Unchained Twins Sarama. So, you can target one Unchained card in your graveyard, except Unchained Twins Sarama, set it to your field, then destroy one card you control. The great thing about this one is Sarama does not lock you into Fiends. If this card on the field is destroyed by card effect, except Unchained Twins Sarama, or by battle, you can special summon one Unchained monster from your hand or deck, except Unchained Twins Sarama. You can only use each effect of Sarama once per turn. Now again, as with the other 2 twins, I recommend playing 3 copies of Sarama as well. She really helps recycle a lot of your cards, and she's also great for facilitating a couple of plays. Alright, so next we're going to be covering the big dogs. First we have Abominable Unchained Soul, which is also one of the most satisfying cards to resolve in the deck. You can only special summon Abominable Unchained Souls once per turn. Now that's this card's biggest drawback, unfortunately. If a card you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is special summoned, you can discard one card, destroy one card on the field. Once per turn during the end phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it was destroyed on the field and sent there this turn, you can special summon this card, but place it on the bottom of the deck when it leaves the field. I recommend 2 copies of this card minimum. He's great for chain blocking, non-targeting removal, and he can be used in the damage step. Next, the inevitable brick that will always end up in your hand, especially if your name is Distant Coder. Unchained Soul of Disaster. It gains 300 attack for each Unchained card in your graveyard. You can only use each of the following effects of Unchained Soul of Disaster once per turn. You can target one face-up monster your opponent controls. Immediately after this effect resolves, link summon one Dark Link monster using only this card you control and that opponent's monster as material. If this card in the field is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target one Unchained monster in your graveyard except Unchained Soul of Disaster and special summon it. I recommend at least 1 copy of this card, but I can definitely see an argument for 2 at most. It's great for link climbing and for breaking apart your opponent's board. Alright, now this deck does have 2 in-archetype spells. One of them is good, and one of them is meh, to say the least. Let's start off with Wailing of the Unchained Souls. If you link summon an Unchained Link monster, you can target one card in the field, destroy it. If this set card is destroyed by card effect, you can special summon one Unchained monster from your deck. You can only use each effect of Wailing of the Unchained Souls once per turn. Now, this is the one that I would say is meh. I recommend one copy of this card at most in your deck, just for you to try it out and see for yourself whether it comes up at all or not. Like, I personally would just cut this card in its entirety because you have other cards that serve similar purposes in the archetype already, and I personally think there's just room for way better cards for you to play. Next, we have Abomination's Prison. For this card, you can add one Unchained card from your deck to your hand. If the set card is destroyed by card effect, you can special summon one Unchained monster from your deck. You can only use each effect of Abomination's Prison once per turn. Now, it's needless to say that anytime an archetype has a search card for any card in the deck, it's probably a really good thing, and I highly recommend playing 3 copies of this card. Alright, so now we're going to be covering the 2 in archetype traps. They're both fantastic in my opinion, and we're going to be starting off with Escape of the Unchained. So you can target one Unchained monster you control and one card on the field, destroy both. If this set card is destroyed by card effect, you can special summon one Unchained monster from your deck. You can only use each effect of Escape of the Unchained once per turn. This is great because your Unchained twins float, and sometimes you can actually kill 2 birds with 1 stone if you bring out a bomb from your main deck to pop another card. I highly recommend playing 3 copies of Escape in your deck. Next, we have Abominable Chamber of the Unchained. Special summon one Unchained monster from your hand or graveyard. If this set card is destroyed by card effect, you can special summon one Unchained monster from your deck. You can only use each effect of Abominable Chamber of the Unchained once per turn. So this is great for bringing stuff back like Abomin Disaster. It allows you to play lower ratios with them. Also, you can bring back a Rage, and then you can link climb on your opponent's turn. It's also great for helping you link climb and push for lethal in general, and I definitely recommend playing 3 copies of Chamber in your Unchained deck. So this deck has fantastic link monsters, and it's crazy to think that sometimes you don't even need to go into them to win games. However, we're going to be starting from the link 2 and working our way up to the link 4. So first off, we have Unchained Soul of Rage. He's a good doggo! And so he requires 2 monsters, including an Unchained Soul monster. And this is like the difficult thing to get accustomed to when first learning the deck, because usually people try to use the 2 twins to go into the Rage, and that's just an illegal play. Now, as you keep playing the deck, you'll learn that this actually isn't a hindrance, and you'll learn to see the line of plays that will lead into your links. So, during your opponent's main phase, this is a quick effect. You can target one face-up special summon monster your opponent controls. Immediately after this effect resolves, link summon one dark link monster except for Unchained Soul of Rage by using only that opponent's monster and this card you control as material. If this card in the field is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target one Fiend monster in your graveyard except Unchained Soul of Rage, add it to your hand. You can only use each effect of Unchained Soul of Rage once per turn. So, this is great for interrupting your opponent's plays, and you can probably hold this effect off until you feel like it's absolutely necessary, because if your opponent's Link 1 doesn't do anything, you can probably wait until the Link 2 climb into a higher link monster, and this is especially the case with a deck like Salamangreat. So as for the recommended ratios for the extra deck, we're going to be assuming that Pot of Extravagance is played. So for that exact reason, I'm going to be recommending 3 copies of Rage. However, if you're playing without extravagances in your deck, you can probably cut down the ratio of each of these cards by 1. Next off, we have Unchained Soul of Anguish. So, this requires 2+ monsters, including an Unchained Soul monster as well. You can target one face-up monster your opponent controls. Immediately after this effect resolves, link summon one Dark Link monster except Unchained Soul of Anguish by using only that opponent's monster and this card you control as material. If this card in the field is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target one Fiend monster in your graveyard except Unchained Soul of Anguish, add it to your hand. You can only use each effect of Unchained Soul of Anguish once per turn. Now, unfortunately, this one is not a quick effect, and it would be absolutely disgusting if it was. This is great for link climbing on your own turn, and it has a floating effect, so you should probably play 3 copies of this doggo as well, and there's absolutely no reason not to, I think. And the final one, the Link 4 Unchained Abomination. This one is 2+ monsters, including a Link monster. if a card on the field is destroyed by card effect except by Unchained Abomination, and except during the damage step, you can target one card in the field, destroy it. When another monster is destroyed by battle, you can target one card in the field and destroy it. During the end phase, you can target one card on the field and destroy it. You can only use each effect of Unchained Abomination once per turn. In a simplified game state, this card is very good. Unfortunately, it doesn't feel like the other two, so it doesn't always feel that great to go into. I recommend playing 2 copies of this card because you're not overly concerned or relying on it, and you don't really care about banishing it. To be honest with you, summoning it doesn't really come up all that frequently. Welcome to part 2 of the Unchained guide. In this part of the guide, we're going to be covering popular tech choices. Now, I've mentioned before that I believe you should probably be playing Pot of Extravagance if you want to be playing this deck. However, we won't be covering this card, but I just wanted to note that it's actually a very popular tech choice in the deck. For the first tech, we're going to be covering Dark Spirit of Banishment. If your opponent's monster attacks, at the start of damage step, you can send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard, then target one level 8 Fiend monster in your graveyard, special summon it, but its effects are negated. And if you do, change the attack target to it and perform damage calculation. If a level 8 Fiend monster is sent to your graveyard while this card is in your graveyard, except during the damage step, you can add this card to your hand. You can only use each effect of Dark Spirit of Banishment once per turn. So this is nice because sometimes when you're pushing for damage, you typically just fall 500 short. This card also activates in your damage step, so sometimes there's just very little your opponent can do to actually counteract it. The card is also great at recycling itself, so that's actually a huge plus to it as well. Next, we have Torrential Tribute. When a monster is summoned, destroy all monsters on the field. Very simple card. So it's great for clearing a board mid-combo, and it's a lot better than Nibiru, for instance, because for you, it will trigger your twins and allow them to float into your other monsters. And lastly, Artifact Scythe. You can set this card from your hand to your spell and trap zone as a spell. During your opponent's turn, if this set card in the spell and trap zone is destroyed and sent to your graveyard, you can special summon it. If this card is special summoned during your opponent's turn, your opponent cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn. A card that can be crippling for combo decks to see. You can easily clear weak boards and push for lethal if this card resolves successfully. You have an Archetype card that can trigger it if you brick on it, and you can also play Trap Trick because your Unchained cards are normal trap cards and can be tutored out alongside the Artifact Sanctum. Welcome to part 3 of the Unchained guide. In this part of the guide, we're going to be covering spicy tech choices. Again, you can never have a Bear x Bear video without some spice. So first up, we have Tao Tai Dragon, which is notably a TCG exclusive and recently came out in Eternity Code. So, this monster requires 2+ monsters special summon from the extra deck, and it gains effects based on the card types used for its link summon. So, if you use a fusion monster, your opponent cannot activate monster effects during the battle phase. If you use a synchro monster, your opponent cannot activate spell or trap cards and effects during your main phase, and if you use an Xyz monster, your opponent cannot activate the effects of cards in the graveyard during your main phase or battle phase. Now, it doesn't necessarily have any important applicability at this very moment, but that's not to say that it can't come up in niche situations or even be very good in the future. I think this card has some interesting effects, and this deck can make it with a lot of ease, so it's just something to consider. The next card we have is a card that everybody is familiar with, probably up there with some of the most iconic cards ever printed in this game, alongside stuff like Dark Magician, Mirror Force, Monster Reborn. That's right, I'm talking about Dark Hole. So, this card is simple, it's just destroy all monsters on the field. This card is good for similar reasons that Torrential is, however, it's definitely not better. It can't interrupt combos, unfortunately, but it does still trigger your Unchained monsters when they are destroyed. This card is at 3 and could be a spicy tech in the side deck if you wish to play it. At the least, it instantly forces or baits out a negate, and considering that this deck loves to break boards, and does so very well I might add, baiting on a negate could be a very good thing. Welcome to part 4 of the Unchained guide. In this part of the guide, we're going to be covering hand trap choices. Alright, so let's talk about some hand trap choices. So I have Ash Blossom over here, and that's just to represent generically any hand trap. There's nothing that really hurts this deck, and you can play just about every hand trap in the game. One hand trap that I'm kind of iffy on would be Nibiru, because even though Nibiru is really good and feels like a must play in the meta, it unfortunately clears your board and doesn't trigger your Unchained cards because it doesn't destroy them. A hand trap that I think deserved independent discussion is Lancia. Now, your deck does struggle against decks that banish, such as Dinos and Orcus, because Dinos have Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, which can set all of your Unchained cards and then send them instead of destroying them, and Orcus have Dingirsu, which can also send your cards instead of destroying them. Not to mention, it is possible to run a Sanctum package in Unchained, and there's actually a lot of synergy in doing so, so Lancia is actually a very good shout to play in the deck. Another good card is Dimension Shifter. Shifter can really hurt a lot of decks in the format at the moment, and luckily for you, your cards don't need to hit the graveyard in order to trigger their effects. All they have to do is be destroyed. Where they end up after that is completely irrelevant. This deck can really push for lethal if given the opportunity, and that is exactly what Shifter is there to provide. Welcome to part 5 of the Unchained guide. In this part of the guide, we're going to be covering extra deck choices. Dark extra deck monsters are the go-to choice for this deck. I have Topologic Trisbana there, but it is to represent the entire Topologic package. This deck can utilize the whole package really well as easily link climb into them. Trisbana is a link 3 that is easily made off of Rage and can be triggered by a lot of cards in your deck. Topologic Bomber not only triggers when a monster is special summoned to an arrow it points to, but it destroys, which in sequence will also trigger your Unchained monsters. Meanwhile, Zerboros is just an absolute beast of a card that can wipe away entire boards and have its attack become absolutely massive and become incredibly difficult to deal with. Next, we have Axis Code Talker. This is a link that came out in Eternity Code and is up there with one of the best link 4s that we currently have in the game. It's a very powerful card. If you have room in your extra deck, you should definitely be playing it. It can easily become a 5300 attack monster that offers destruction that cannot be responded to. Just an absolute beast of a card. And finally, we have Dingirsu. This card does require a bit of setup in comparison to your other extra deck monsters. However, the non-targeting removal and non-destructive removal is a very good utility to have in the extra deck. If you're asking how you make it, unfortunately, you're going to have to hard make it with a Bomb and Disaster. There's no real easy way to go about it, but it is absolutely worth a utility slot in the extra deck. Welcome to part 6 of the Unchained guide. In this part of the guide, we're going to be covering some tips and tricks. So this deck has some pretty cool interactions with other decks, as well as some pretty cool outplay potential as well. The first one I want to talk about revolves around your Unchained links using your opponent's monsters to link summon. In this specific scenario, you would have Unchained Soul of Rage while your opponent controls Sky Striker Ace Kagari. Your opponent will also have Sky Striker Ace Ray in the graveyard. Now, if you use Rage's effect to target Kagari to link off, even though it is an effect, Sky Striker Ace Ray will not trigger in the graveyard. The reason for this being is that this is considered a link summon and not as Kagari leaving the field by a card effect. Be wary, you will have some judge calls on this one because people are just not aware of the interaction. The next one we're going to talk about is Rakia and Nibiru. So in this specific scenario, Nibiru is Chainlink 1 and let's pretend Rakia is Chainlink 2. What it targets is absolutely irrelevant. Rakia's effect restricts you into summoning fiends, so since chains resolve backwards and Rakia's effect will resolve first, you will no longer be able to special summon Nibiru. However, Nibiru does attempt to resolve as much as possible, so you will end up clearing the entire board still, and this can be very useful and can actually swing the momentum of the game in your favor rather quickly if Rakia pops an Unchained card other than itself. The final one that I want to talk about is how you can dodge targeting effects such as Infinite Impermanence. So for this instant, let us say that Sarama is Chainlink 1, followed by your opponent's targeting Sarama as Chainlink 2 with Infinite Impermanence. you would follow it up by chaining Rakia as Chainlink 3 to pop your Sarama, and since when the chain resolves, Sarama is no longer on the field, Imperm will not be able to negate her effect. Also, since Imperm didn't negate the effect, you also don't have to worry about not activating cards in that column, as Imperm has to negate the monster effect in order to gain the latter half of its effect. That's it for the tips and tricks. I really hope that these are useful and that you guys were able to learn something from them. Welcome to part 7 of the Unchained guide. In this part of the guide, we're going to be covering how to beat Unchained. Now, as much as it pains me to teach you how to beat the deck, let's talk about it. This deck loses to non-destructive removal, so you can Cosmic Cyclone the back row away either preemptively or perhaps in response to something like Aruka's effect. That can instantly hurt the Unchained player's line of play and put them in a very bad spot. Also, cards like Altergeist Meluseek and Ultimate Conductor Tyranno can clear Unchained boards because they can send and not destroy. Since Geist, Dinos, and Orcust all exist in the meta and a lot of people play them, it is one of the reasons that Unchained is not very prevalent. Next, Floodgates can hurt this deck and they can hurt many other decks as well. But to be more concise, the two that hurt the most are Gozen Match and Tikaboo. You have a variety of attributes among fire, water, and dark, so Gozen Match can just cripple any possible line of play that you can try to make. Also, with There Can Be Only One, all of your monsters are Fiend, so it can really hurt your deck and put you very far behind. Welcome to part 8 of the Unchained guide. In this part of the guide, we're going to be going over the going first and going second deck profiles. Okay, so just a quick note, these deck profiles are just a great starting point because regardless of whether you agree with the build or not, if you are a new Unchained player, this is a great place to start. So, let's start off with the going first build, which will consist of 3 Rakia, 3 Aruha, 3 Sarama, 1 Disaster, 2 Abom, 3 Nibiru, 3 Ash, 1 Scythe, 3 Abominations Prison, 3 Pot of Extravagance, 3 Escape of the Unchained, 2 Abominable Chamber of the Unchained, 3 Infinite Impermanence, 3 Torrential Tribute, 2 Artifact Sanctum, and 1 Trap Trick. So the reason for the 1 Trap Trick is because you do have other ways to pop your Scythe. It is also very versatile because you have your Unchained traps, which are normal traps, and you can tutor them out depending on the scenario. So the difference between this and the going second build is that the going second build will have Cosmic Cyclone. Unfortunately, you will not have this in this build, but what you could do is if you have Trap Trick, you can tutor out Escape of the Unchained, and then you can pop an Unchained and a spell or trap on your opponent's field. Then for the extra deck, we have 3 Unchained Soul of Rage, 3 Unchained Soul of Anguish, 2 Unchained Abomination, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, 1 Topologic Trisbana, 1 Topologic Bomber Dragon, 1 Topologic Zeraboros, 1 Axis Code Talker, 1 Borosaur Dragon, and 1 Dingirsu to round out the going first build. So this is the going second Unchained build, and it varies from the going first very slightly. So starting off with the Unchained Twins, we have 3 copies of Aruha, 3 copies of Rakia, 3 Sarama, 1 Unchained Soul of Disaster, 2 Abom, 3 Nibiru, 3 Ash, 1 Pankratops, 1 Dark Spirit of Banishment, 3 Abominations Prison, 3 Pot of Extravagance, 2 Cosmic Cyclone, 3 copies of Escape of the Unchained, 3 Abominable Chamber, 3 Infinite Impermanence, and 3 Evenly Matched. So for the extra deck, we have 3 copies of Unchained Soul of Rage, 3 copies of Unchained Soul of Anguish, 2 copies of Unchained Abomination, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, 1 Tautai Dragon, 1 Topologic Trisbana, 1 Axis Code Talker, Topologic Bomber Dragon, Topologic Zeraboros, and Dingirsu to end off the going second build. Alright guys, we are approaching the end of the video with only the replays remaining. Since this is the final part of the video that I will be speaking to you guys, I just want to thank you again so much for watching. And one last time, if you haven't already, please leave a like, drop a comment, and most importantly, subscribe to show your support. Thank you guys so much for watching, and with that, please do enjoy the final part of the Unchained guide. Welcome to part 9 and the final part of the Unchained guide. In this part of the guide, we're going to be watching some replays.